Too fast. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Srimad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 5th day of August, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this is also the very auspicious disappearance day of Srila Rupa Goswami and Gauridas Pandit. Okay, so we're on text 1 of chapter 7 on page 303. Oh, you have a different book? Oh. You just have to get it from hearing. You have to hear it. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Mai Asakta Mana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yata Gyasyasi Tatchinu Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yata Gyasati Tatchinu Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yata Gyasati Tatchinu Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yata Gyasati Tatchinu. Tapas. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yatarghasati Tatchunu. Chad, you go. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yata Gyasati Tatchanu. Nilesh, you want to try? Asaktamana Partha Ladies. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Ami. Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Asangshayam Samagram Mam Dagya Sati Tatchanu. Asha, you want to try? Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Marashayah Yatargyasati Tatchanu. Okay, I'll read word by words. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Lord said, Mai, to me, asakta manaha, mind attached, partha, O son of Pita, yogam, self-realization, yunjan, practicing, mat ashrayaha, in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness, asangshayam, without doubt, samagram, completely, mam, me, yata, how, gyasasi, you can know, tat, that, shrinu, try to hear. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Now hear, O son of Pita, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Purport. In this 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in all opulence, in all opulences, and how he manifests such opulences is described herein. Also, 4 kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna and 4 kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna are described in this chapter. In the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yogas. At the end of the 6th chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahma Jyoti, or localized Paramatma realization, is not perfect knowledge of the absolute truth, because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimately knowledge beyond any doubts, Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahma Jyoti and Paramatma in full. By practice of Krishna consciousness yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, the material nature, and their manifestations with paraphernalia. One should therefore begin yoga practice as directed in the last verse of the 6th chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam, hearing, is the first and most important. The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tat Trinu, or hear from me. No one can be a greater authority than Krishna, and therefore by hearing from him, one receives the greatest opportunity to become a perfectly Krishna-conscious person. One has therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non-devotee upstart puffed up with academic education. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this process of understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is described in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto as follows. Srinvatam sukata Krishna punya shavana kirtanaha vidyantaksto yabhadrani vidunoti suritsatam nasta prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Tadadarastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta eta unabidham stitam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate vidyate vidya grantis chidyante sarva sangshayaha chiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishvare. Quote, to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a Sangshayam Samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatam 1:17-21. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So just a little history of this verse in the history of Srila Prabhupada giving Bhagavad Gita classes. I listen to a class every morning after I get up. You know, that's what I'm accompanying my preparations for coming to the temple. And there's a whole collection of Bhagavad Gita classes, and also Bhagavatam classes, and some Chaitanya Charitamrita classes like that. So this verse, when Prabhupada came to this verse, he was in India. He was traveling in India. And wherever he went, he gave a class on this verse. You see, there's like 10 or 12 verses, 10 or 12 places, and he would give, again, a class on this verse, illustrating how important it is. So let's just see how this verse fits in context. Everything is in context. So remember, the last chapter, Krishna gave a fairly complete description of the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Who can say what Ashtanga means? 8 limbs. Yes, eight. Ashta Anga. Limbs meaning processes. So the culmination is, the last 3 is dharana, concentration, then dhyana, meditation, then samadhi, complete absorption, right? But it's a deepening of one's remembrance of Krishna. But that remembrance is not supposed to end when you get up from your asana and do your other stuff. The thinking of Krishna is meant to go on perpetually. In other words, the pure devotees, those who are completely realized, they're thinking of Krishna at every moment, both awake and sleeping. They're dreaming of Krishna and they're serving Krishna. And you can see Prabhupada, I mean, he was personification of that. So, but Arjuna, remember, Arjuna pleaded inability to do this. He said, I can't. There's no way I can control the mind. The mind is so powerful, it's like the raging wind. How can you control the raging wind, you know? So he was expressing his inability. And Krishna said, yes, it's very difficult, but one can do it by practice. But Arjuna felt that he couldn't do it. So Krishna, he asked, what happens if I fail? Well, he said, then you don't lose anything. Right in the second chapter, we learn that in this practice of Krishna consciousness, or of yoga in general, there's no loss or diminution. Meaning that if you fail to completely control the mind, but you're trying to think of the super soul in the heart, then you get born in a wealthy but pious family, so you have the facility to practice. Or even better, you get born in a yogi family, which you're raised from childhood in this process. In this way, you continue. You don't lose anything. Still, Arjuna was not very sanguine about success. So then Krishna speaks the last verse of the chapter, and that you can just feel a big sigh of relief. Arjuna, it's not in the book, but you can hear it, where he says, all right, yogi nama visarveshan mudgatein antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate homam samayuktata momata. Now, as soon as you start talking about shraddha, faith, and bhajate, you're talking about bhakti yoga. Shraddha means with great faith. So anyway, he says, of all the yogis, yogi nama visarveshan, those who are always thinking of me within their heart, worshipping me with great and transcendental faith in bhakti, love and devotion, are the best, are the greatest, in my opinion. Krishna says his opinion is final. I'm not so, anyway, as an editorial thing, the word opinion, if you look it up, it seems something that is kind of doesn't necessarily, is not supported by facts, but is one's own, Opinion is not the word. Krishna says, I consider someone in that state to be the highest yogi. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So now, here we're entering into the middle 6 chapters of the Gita. Prabhupada explains near the end of the Gita that the Gita is, it's like a book. And the book has the covers and the substances in the middle. So the first 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters are like coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which give you the essence of everything. The last of those middle 6 chapters is called Bhakti Yoga. It's a very short chapter, chapter 12, just from beginning to end. It's all about Bhakti Yoga. So anyway, now back to this first verse. So the whole point of Ashtanga Yoga is to increase your remembrance of Krishna and finally come to the point of always thinking of Krishna. But the Bhakti Yogi follows a much more organic process, because here he says, Maya Sakta Manaparta. I am going to now explain how you can, your mind can become attached to me, become attracted to me. Because the whole point is, that if one is so much attracted to Krishna and serving Krishna, then you'll naturally be thinking of Krishna at all times. And Krishna will explain the process of how we can begin to think of Krishna more and more in our life. And he gives examples of things, how we can see Krishna. He says, after he explains what this world is, which is made of these different energies, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Those are progressively more subtle. And then mind, intelligence, and ego. We all have a mind, intelligence, and ego. They're very subtle, but they're also material energies. They're not us. Then above all of them is the superior energy, the soul. Each of us doesn't have a soul. We are a soul. We have a body. So that's the foundation. Then he starts explaining how, he'll say, Raso ham apsukonteya prabhasmisha shishuriyo. It says, I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the ability in man, and all of these different things. And he goes on, I'm the fragrance of the earth. He goes through all the senses. How can he say that? Well, because he just explained these energies are my energies. The fire, the sunshine is made of fire. It's all fire. It's the result of fire. So when you see the sunshine, you should think, oh, that's Krishna, because he's the source of the sun. He's the source of that fire. And when we drink water, where did the water come from? It came from Krishna. You know, and not only that, but our ability to taste it is also his arrangement. So in this way, we can begin to, in our ordinary daily life, we can begin to be thinking of Krishna more and more, how he is everywhere. So that's the first part of this. And naturally, the mind will become more and more attached to Krishna the more we think of him, because he's all attractive. That's what the very word Krishna means. He attracts the mind irresistibly, you know, just like you know, the name Krishna that we're chanting. The science is that Krishna is absolute, meaning that he is present in full in those things which are directly related to him. What could be more directly related than his name? So he's present in the holy name. And we become attracted to Krishna and everything related to Krishna just by chanting and hearing that holy name. Now, the sadhana practice is a serious, weaning away the mind from eons of births of material attraction and material entanglement. So it's not so easy, but it is practical, and it works, and there's no loss or diminution. So when you take the long view and you say, okay, you know, maybe I won't go back to God in this lifetime, but I'm going to try as hard as I can, and even if I fail, there's the next lifetime. And I'm not going to start from scratch. I'm going to start from as far as I got. So all of it is very hopeful. The only real hopeful thing in this material world is what's not of the material world, namely our spiritual endeavor to reawaken. And it's so important to remember that this is our natural thing. Being embodied in matter and restricted and conditioned is not natural for the soul. That's why we can never find peace and happiness in this situation, because ultimately it changes. Even if you find it for a little while, you know, then you say, boy, it was really nice when I lived in San Diego, but then I had to move from there, and now I'm living in the desert, and it wasn't, or something like that. Some equivalent of that, right? Or just getting older. You know, I'm in this. You know, I've been here for over 35 years, so I've kind of grown old here. So when someone like Kirtaneshwar comes, you hear, you know. So we let him lead the first Mangalartik when he came, He was bouncing, up and down. He was like, first of all, he chanted as loud as he could. We had to turn down the mic, He didn't need a mic, but we have a noise. And there's a reason why he's called Kirtanesh. Actually, his name is Kirtaneshwar Gauranga. His name, it's a name after Lord Chaitanya. Gauranga, the golden-limbed one. That's what Gauranga means. So he was given that name. And he personifies that. Usually in Mangal Artik, it's a little more meditative, you get... No, as soon as he started, whoa, he's bouncing, he would bounce off the walls. So it was enlivening to see someone like... And I remembered my early days, when I joined, I was much younger. Huh? Yeah, the whole crew came from Tucson. I know them. I used to visit them. So anyway, it was enlivening to be with someone in that in that mentality. Was really committed to kirtan. So the whole process. We'll move on from this. But Prabhupada in this purport, he picks up on the word Tatshanu. He said, "Try to hear from me." The whole thing is hearing, right? Hearing the rounds and hearing Krishna speak. So then he focuses on this passage from the second canto of the first chapter. Now, when you start reading the Bhagavatam, you come to this section in the second chapter of the first canto, and the sages at Naimisharanya. Welcome, Hare Krishna again. And they're asking Sutta Goswami. Now, Sutta Goswami was there when the Bhagavatam was first spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Pariksit. Pariksit was this great king, and he was, a great devotee. He was saved by Krishna in the womb. Anyway, it's a long story, but at the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, this Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya, he threw this Brahmastra weapon, which is like a nuclear weapon, but it can be focused on one person. It's a very powerful weapon. So he threw he wanted to kill the last descendant of the Kurus, so that the line would be finished. So the last descendant was still in the womb. That was King Pariksit. And so he threw it, and it's not like it's indiscriminate atom bomb that kills everything and destroys everything. But you can focus it on one person. So it's headed toward... So he's in the womb, and he sees this fiery weapon coming at him. So Krishna, he enters into the womb and protects him. And he sees Krishna in the womb before he's even born. So his very name, Pariksit, means he's always looking, where is that Krishna that I saw then? You see? Pariksit. Anyway, so... what happens is that King Pariksit, he's a very pious king. He's a devotee, and he's out in the forest hunting. They have a chance to hunt, so they can keep their skill for protecting. And he's very thirsty and very tired. So he goes to this little hut, and there's a yogi meditating in there, and he really wants some water, but the yogi doesn't break his trance. He's just in his trance, So he becomes upset and angry. So there's a dead snake nearby. So he takes the dead snake and puts it around his shoulders. And it's frustration. So the son of this yogi hears about it. Now, this is the beginning of Kali Yuga. And so they're Brahmins. But so this little boy was trained in Brahminical activities, and he has some Brahma Tejas. So that means he can curse. And it'll have its effect. So he gets angry at Pariksit, even though he's the king of the world, and he's holding. And so he curses him to die in 7 days from the bite of a snake bird. Actually, it's the whole thing. So Pariksit hears about the curse, and instead of counteracting it or finding he accepts it as Krishna's will. So he's got 7 days to live. What to do? What would we do? We'd probably freak out and head for the hills. But no, he sits down by the bank of the Ganges and waits. And all these sages come, and Shukadeva Goswami comes. And he's very, very learned. He's a fully realized devotee. And he begins speaking the Bhagavatam. 7 days. It took 7 days to hear the whole Bhagavatam. He didn't eat, didn't sleep. Nobody did. They just hearing the Bhagavatam. So... the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a history I won't get into. It's the last work of Srila Vyasadeva. He wrote all the Vedic literatures, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, which has the Gita in it, and the Vedas, the 4 Vedas. But he was dissatisfied. So his spiritual master comes, Narada Muni, and tells him, yes, because you haven't fully glorified Krishna and Krishna consciousness and the devotees of Krishna. You have to write that book. And that will be the actual, true commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which was your last verse, the last work that you thought was final, but it's not. So Vyasadeva meditated, and Krishna revealed it to him, and he wrote it. And so, but in the first chapter, there's a verse describing how disqualified us Kali Yugites are. We don't live very long. We're not very interested in spiritual matters. We're too absorbed in material things. We're lazy in the matter of if we do get interested, we may just a hobby for a while, and always disturbed, right? Isn't it? So we're not really eligible to practice Ashtanga Yoga or even to study the Vedas for years and years, like that. We need an easier process. So the sages says, what is the Dharma by which the souls in this age can achieve real happiness and peace? So these 5 verses are part of the answer of Suta Goswami. He's describing how we have to get attraction to hear about Krishna. And then what happens if we have that? Then this is the verse, Shinvatam Sukata Krishna. So by hearing about Krishna, Krishna who's in our heart and is our best friend, he purifies. Surit, this word surit is very important. Abhadrani, all the inauspicious things become pure, cleansed, just like Lord Chaitanya says, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. By chanting Hare Krishna, which is the best Krishna Katha, in congregation, then the mirror of the heart becomes cleansed and you advance. So the next thing, Nashta Prayasha Bhadrashi, all these abhadras, these inauspicious desires and fears in the heart become destroyed almost to nil by Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, by always serving the Bhagavat. Now the word Bhagavat means something in relation to Bhagavan. It has 2 main meanings. It means the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Mahabhagavat, the person Bhagavat who personifies the teachings of the Bhagavatam. So by serving both of them, both the Srimad Bhagavatam by hearing and trying to follow, and by serving the Bhagavat, the pure devotee, Bhagavad Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavakti Naishtiki. Now, Uttama Shloka is a wonderful name for Krishna, which means he who is glorified in the most beautiful shlokas. Isn't that a great name? Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki, one becomes fixed in bhakti. In other words, his faith becomes very firm. And then at that time, the lower modes of nature are eliminated. Rajas, Tamo, Bhava, Kama, Lobha, which produce the lust and the greed, etc. You become transcendental to that. And Sheta Etana Viddam Stitam Sattve Prasiditi, you become fixed in goodness, but which brings natural joy. And then, Evam Prasanna Manaso, with such a joyful and pure mind, Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata, engaged in the process of Bhagavad Bhakti. Loving devotional service to Bhagavan. One gets realized knowledge. Krishna reveals himself. We have Gyan. We need Gyan. Who are we? What is this world? And so forth. But we know we're all spirit, but we can't really see the spirit. We know, we have faith that it's true. But when we become really purified, you can see the soul in the heart. You can perceive that in your own heart and others. So that's Vijnana. Jnana culminates in Vijnana. Bhagavatatta Vijnanam Mukta Sangha Sejayate. And at that point, you become practically free of all attachment and entanglement in the material world. Then the final verse, which Vidyate, so here's the Vidyate Vidya Granti. Now this word Granti means a knot, a tight knot in the heart. When we enjoy something in this world, we tie a little knot in our heart because we want to do it again, you see? And if we're simply doing material things, our heart is filled with all these knots that bring us back again to a material body. And if we're really, in the mode of ignorance and very sinful, then we're not going to get another human body. We get demoted. We never die, but we get demoted, and it takes a long time. But here it says those knots are cut. The knots, because your knots are being tied to Krishna. Your heart is being tied to Krishna by attraction. And concomitantly, the material attractions are waning or being destroyed. Chidyante sarva sankshaya, you're free of doubts. You're free of doubts because you have so much direct experience, the big jnana, you see. Chiyante chasti karmani, all your karma is eradicated. Good and so-called good and so-called bad. Bad karma, you suffer. Good karma, you go to heaven. But that's not good either because eventually you come back down here. Right? That's in the Bhagavad Gita. So we don't want any karma, no more karma. And then, drishta evat manishre. Now, this this little phrase at the end, it had been poorly edited in the original book. So, drishta evat manishre, Prabhupada explains, it means you see yourself as well as the Ishvara, the Lord. In other words, you understand your relationship with Krishna. That's the whole point. We perceive Krishna more and more, we serve him, we think about him, we hear about him, become attracted. And gradually, it's revealed to you what your original, what is it called, the swarup is. Your swarup means your real form and your particular service in relation to Krishna. That's all revealed. So that's the whole process begins with hearing, you know, with, and not just any old hearing, but hearing shushu sho. There's a word shushu sho, which means, Prabhupada defines it variously. Ardent hearing, really wait, you know, hanging on every word, or submissive oral reception. In other words, you're not, that doesn't make much sense, you know, the mind is rejecting this, accepting that. No, is that you're accepting everything. So that kind of hearing results ultimately in full realization. And that's what Prabhupada, he gives a little summary here. So that's why Krishna says, Tatrinu, now hear from me. And so he's going to explain the things I just outlined and practical ways in which we can cultivate more and more attraction to Krishna and more remembrance of Krishna. Any questions, comments, doubts? Oh, great. They've all been destroyed. I can see that. Chidyante sarvashamshi. All right, let's go on. Jnanam teham savijnanam idam bhakshyam yasheshataha yagyatpa neha bhuyon yaj gyatavyam avashishyate. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Phenomenal and numinous means material and spiritual. Purport. Complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. Maharaj said, matter, spirit, and the controller of both. That's in another place. The Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned system of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. In the beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord, and it is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession directly from the Lord. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes, and the only object for meditation in all types of yoga practice. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 113 says, Kasmin tu bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavatiti. So, this is, I shall now under both phenomenal and numinous. Phenomenal and numinous, as I meant, means material and spiritual, you see. And when the cause, so we're looking for the cause of all causes now. What's the famous verse? We can all chant it together, where Lord Brahma declares Krishna to be the cause of all causes. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Sarvakarana Karanam means the cause of all causes. Everything, if you think about it, everything is causing something else. Like, what's the cause of this building? Well, it has multiple causes, right? First thing is someone's desire to build it. It wasn't a desire to build a temple. It was a desire to build, I think, a movie house, a storehouse. It was various, over its history. But then devotees got it. And so we had a desire to build a temple, so we redid. I mean, all of these ornamentation is beautiful, which you really don't find practically anywhere else. A whole year it took the devotees working on the sculpture and all of these different things. So that's one of the cause, But why did they do it? To please Krishna. So he's the ultimate cause of how this temple came about, right? And even when we just, go into work and get some money and pay the rent, how does that happen? How does that work? Well, we have this body. We didn't create it. It was given to us, right? So our very ability to go to work and do the things that we do, that we take for granted, are all results of Krishna's mercy, especially the human form, the brain. But the thing is, it's tragic if that brain, that special brain, is not used to inquire into the absolute truth. How can we get free from this round of birth and death and this imprisonment in material life? That should be our question. And the answer is all in Prabhupada's books and his teachings in his movement. That's the whole purpose of this. But you can see how, for most people, it never comes up. They have all the questions of, as I rent, how can I pay the rent this month? How am I going to deal with my mother who now is so sick? We don't have Medicare. They cut the Medicare. Oh God! There's all of these things constantly, in life, and especially as you get older and this and that. So that's the problem that the conditioned soul has. Is everything is conditional. You can't even live unless you get food. So you're conditioned on eating, So, and some people can't get that. So that's material life. And spiritual life it ultimately means that you're simply existing, knowing that at every moment your existence is related to Krishna, and your whole purpose in life is just to keep connected through the process of service. And if you can't serve directly the deity, remembrance. It all starts with hearing, chanting, remembering. What do you need? You need a tongue, ears, and a brain, and a voice. And a heart, right. All right, we got those things. We're all equipped, and we're very fortunate. We should sometimes just reflect on how fortunate we are. I'll go through this. I think you know the drill. Krishna appears 5,000 years ago, right? But how often does he appear? Once in a day of Brahma. How long is that, Mahima? She's got it down. 8.64 billion years. That's just one day. His whole life is 311 trillion, 40 billion. Forget the 40 billion, it's like a rounding error, 311 trillion, 40 billion years, that's the lifetime of Brahma. But so you figure it out, the day is 8,640,000,000 years. So that's 24 hours, I think. Okay, so Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. I haven't worked it out, but it's like maybe 2 snaps of the finger compared to the 8,640,000,000. And Lord Chaitanya, who's also Krishna, 35 years ago, it's just like yesterday. Here we are, so fortunate to be, to have the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You know how long it took Bhaktivinoda Thakur to find one in India? the Lord Chaitanya's movement had been so eclipsed that he couldn't even find the CC for years to read in Bengal. Finally found it, and then everything came from there. He said, "Whoa, this is the final." And he's a great acharya. So so here we are. Prabhupada was just here. Now so much 50 years ago he passed about, and we have all of this facility, and we have the temple, and we have the mantra, and we should take advantage of it. That's the idea. As far as as advanced as we can in this lifetime, and then who knows? Maybe it won't be on this planet. Maybe it'll be on another planet, but we will continue our Krishna consciousness. So now Krishna is going to start explaining how rare it is. Text 3. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatpataha. Out of many thousands among men, human beings, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Purport. There are various grades of men, And out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. And hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super-self, and the process of realization by jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, but at the same time, he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripad Shankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it is very difficult to know Krishna even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the primeval Lord Govinda. Then he quotes, right? Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Which means Krishna is the supreme controller, supreme God. He has a form, a body of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. He has no beginning. He's the beginning of everything. His name is Govinda, and he's the cause of all causes. It is very difficult for the non-devotees to know him. Although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti, or devotional service, is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy, as the non-devotee class have been proclaimed, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy, but when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.101, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidhin Bina Aikantiki Hare Bhakti Utpataya Bakalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, the Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It is not possible for the Brahman-realized impersonalist or the Paramatma-realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muyanti yat suryaha, mam tu vedana kaschana. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says. And if one does know him, then samahatma sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, tattvataha, even though one is a great scholar or philosopher. Only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities in Krishna, his being the cause of all causes, his omnipotence and opulence, and his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees. He is the last word in Brahman realization, and the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore it is said, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabaved Graham Indriyai Sevan Mukhe Jivado Swayam Eva Spuratyadaha. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. So this verse says, Sevan Mukhe Jivado. We have to begin. Ado means begin. What's the first service? With what sense? Tongue. First, yeah, to chant, of course, and hear, and honor prasadam. Very important. And then, if we do it properly and develop, then he reveals himself. You see, you can't storm the kingdom of God and say, "I want in." No, it doesn't work like that. You have to be invited and welcomed. So, and that even at the first stage, whatever we feel, Krishna is giving us that. If you feel a little bliss, you're in Jagannath and you're dancing, and oh, this is great, that's Krishna from within the heart. He's giving it to us. So it's all coming from him. And with, hearing, of course, with the ear, and chanting is the first thing. So that's what Jiva. Then he will reveal himself. With our present senses, we're too covered, and we can't really perceive Krishna. But that's another way he reveals himself, is through the deity. We can't see him in the spiritual form, so he appears in this. It's still spiritual, but it's through matter, and therefore we can see him and serve him in that form. And so that's another act of mercy of the Lord. He does it at the behest of his pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada installed these deities, and he invited them to come. So we're very fortunate in that regard. Okay, any discussion on these points? We'll resume tomorrow with a meditation on the 8 material energies. That's the next verse. But I left a little time. Hopefully we're going so late these days, so I'm sitting here and she's blowing the conch, so we want to try to avoid that. So here's like a poem. Let's see if I can remember it. All right, the first verse of the Tribhangi Chanda Stava. This is by Rupa Goswami. And I think you pick up the meter. I think, I was my father. I was always listening to jazz and everything when I was a kid. No rock, nothing like that. It's either jazz, folk, or classical. Anyway, so I had this. When I discovered the wonderful meters in Sanskrit, I just went nuts. So here's one. You'll hear just the sound, and then I'll give you a translation. First verse. Yamalajana bandana mashata danjana mahiganjana ganalasa badam Pasupala padandana babasata kandata matisunda damadadinda kadam Vadagopa vadujana vidachata pujana mudukujana namavenu dadam Smadanama vichakshana makalabadakshana tanolakshana matidakshadam. You can't beat the Sanskrit language, isn't it? You broke the two Himalayan trees. No, I think he broke the true Himalayan trees. You broke the two Himalayan trees. You loved to delight your pure devotees. You crushed the pride of the Kali snake with your prancing dance in the Yamuna lake. You're the cowherd's prince and the life and soul. To serve you with love is their only goal. In the caves you meet the gopis fair and enjoy sweet loving pastimes there. You're dashing, clever, and most debonair. Your lotus hands give blessings rare. To worship you again and again is the way of the wives of the cowherd men. When the gopis hear the flute you hold, their passion grows 1,000-fold. Of amorous choking, you're the king. Indeed, you're skilled at everything. And then it goes on which unfortunately, I don't even remember all the translations. But we have 5 more minutes, so I'll give you some other verse. All right, so here's okay, so I thought of this verse because today's disappearance of Rupa Goswami. It's a very auspicious day. And I somehow thought of this verse. This verse describes him and all really pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada and all to a T. Aho, this is from the Padyavali, which is a compendium of his favorite verses. He collected it, A few of them are by him. This is where we get the Shikshastika. It's scattered throughout. It wasn't written as an Astika, and it was made into the Astika at the end of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this one is far out. Aho bir nakale beduyate sudha sudhara mudodam pade pade. Dine dine chandana chandra shitalam yasho yashoda tanayasagiyate. Now, describing the pure devotees. Because at every step they drink a flood of wondrous nectar sweet, whose cooling power a sandal paste enhanced with camphor can't defeat. They feel as if the raging blaze of Kali's days had ne'er begun. How blessed are they who fill their days with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. And we can see Prabhupada did that. From as soon as he's chanting, everything, or he's having some conversation with some newsman, or he's giving class to the devotees, or he's dictating his books. He filled every day with praise of Shri Yashoda's son, as did Rupa Goswami. Hardly ate and hardly slept. He wrote all these books, Nectar of Devotion, and his Govinda Viradavali, and the Leela Chanda, which is a summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. Oh, this is what we need. Okay, we have time for one more, then we have to rush. Real short. Vichayani vichintani punak punak kripanasa dananiva tvannamami bhavantunak. The miser, compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. So you have to be greedy for the holy name. All right, let's adjourn and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.